And at that time, the music that was very popular was called charanga, two violins and a flute. And I played with all of them. I was the bass player for certain clubs where if Broadway was, Orchestra Broadway was one charanga, Fajardo was another charanga, Novell was a charanga, and if they were playing in the same, and on the same night that they were playing at the New York Casino, Cabo Rojeño, or Happy Hills, I was the house bass player, and I was 17 years old. Because no youngster wanted to play bass. They always said, oh, the bass is for an old guy. You know, and then they needed a bass. They told me, Julio, grab the bass. I'm not a bass player, grab the bass. So I grabbed the bass. They would bring the bass, they would buy me the bass, bring the bass on stage, and I would come and just play and then go home. They would pick me up at my house and bring me back. And that's how I became a musician. And then salsa became a product. It's just a name. It's like saying groove or jazz or you know, swing. And then what happened was that Jerry Masucci started the Fania Records with Johnny Pacheco, who was a flute player. And at that time, the music was the genre of the music was called música latina. That's all it was. So, and then when the Dominicans came into New York at that time, they came in with the merengue. And merengue is not salsa. Merengue is merengue. Like bachata is bachata. Bachata is not salsa. Reggaeton is not salsa. Salsa comes from that period of 1967, from the time 1967 till about 1990, maybe you can say maybe until 1990, because Fania Records came out with a record called Salsa that was done by Larry Harlow, who was Jewish. They called him El Judío Maravilloso. And he came out with the first album that was titled Salsa. And then there was a magazine called the Latin New York Magazine. Which was run by, sorry, it's around here someplace. Which was run by a designer, artist. His name was Izzy Sanabria. And then he started calling it, bueno, salsa. And that's how salsa happened. And he started publishing the word salsa in the magazine. I have it here somewhere. It was called the Latin Beat magazine. And this was in New York City. So Izzy Sanabria started to print salsa, and then when the Fania All-Stars came about, it was because in 1973, all the bands broke up. All the singers left Fania and went with Ralphie Mercado, RMM Records. And Ralphie Mercado started his record label and his own clubs. And that's when I came into the band with Ray Barretto in 1973, and we're gonna be showing that in a little while of me taking a solo with Ray Barretto. So since I was working for Teatro San Juan, Teatro Puerto Rico, Channel 41, Channel 47, Show de Mita Silva, I was the bassist of the shows. I was doing the television shows and I was doing the theaters. I was not a member of any band. And then in 1969, when I was 18 years old, there was two DJs. It was Dick Ricardo Sugar and Symphony Sid, and they had an amateur contest for the young kids that were playing with their groups, and I won the contest. And my manager became Dick Ricardo Sugar, and he wanted me to record 3 albums. And I said, with what? With that? He said, yeah, you won the contest. I said, no, I'm playing with Tito now, and I'm playing with Machito, and I'm playing with Cesar Concepcion and Joe Valle. I'm doing the theater. This was only a fun band. I only did it for fun. Instead of making a gang, being a gang leader, I became a band leader. So then it got a little bit confusing. And then what happened was that when the recordings came about, and the bass players wouldn't show up, they would call me and pick me up at my house and take me to the studio I would read the notes and walk away. And then all of a sudden, Finland called me after Google came out and the internet, and I found out that I recorded over 100 albums without even knowing it. Because in the back of the albums wasn't even the name. They didn't even say who was the bass player, or who was the timbalero, or who was the drummer. Finland discovered me again. Finland told me, "You're Julio Romero." And I said, what are you talking about? I'm Julio Romero. Yeah, look. And then with the archives that are coming out because of the situation that we have with the corona, everybody's going into their boxes and they're finding all the archives. So we have a few of them here now that we're going to show you that I didn't even know they existed. So to make a long story short, again, this lecture is supposed to be about explaining where salsa comes from. Salsa comes from my generation of the baby boomers, the ones that were born in the 1950s. So by the time Woodstock came around and the Beatles, especially the Beatles, and the time when I even played on the Ed Sullivan show, on the Dick Parr show, not even knowing, I would just go and play and they would pick me up and take me back home, and I didn't even know what was going on. And in a way, I was a little bit embarrassed with my friends because they were teasing me, telling me that I was playing with the old guys. Oh, look, yeah, he's playing with Machito. Mira, Julio, he's playing with Machito, you know. And I would say, no, I'm not playing with them, you know. I saw you on TV. So, but luckily, it was a blessing. The same thing happened to me when I met Frank Sinatra. I was working at the Browns Hotel in Loch Sheldrick, New York. And I had joined the union, the musicians union, after I won that contest, that band contest, which you're going to see a photo of. And they hired. There was a guy named Felipe Yanes, who was the house band of the Browns Hotel in Loch Sheldrick, New York. It was called the Jerry Lewis Lounge. Does anybody know who Jerry Lewis is here? He was a comedian. So as a kid, he hired me, and I would go and I would play. And it turned out to be that we were the backup, we were the house band for the Rat Pack. And that's how I met Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, and those guys. And I was always sitting in a corner because I had to have a chaperone all the time because I was underage. So then Sammy Davis came over to me and he started talking to me in Spanish, and I was saying, you know, and I was wondering, how do you speak Spanish? His grandmother's Puerto Rican. I am Puerto Rican, by the way. Puerto Rican, born in Spanish Harlem, raised in the Bronx, living in Finland for 33 years. And I love it. It's amazing. It's amazing how Pepe Lustala came out with a book called Rumba King Salsa Star, which you can probably buy it through the internet, or you can rent it in the library. It's called Rumba King Salsa Star. Rumba Salsa, whatever. I'm finished. And it tells you the whole story of how Latin music started from slavery till this day now through Pepe Lustala, and it has a section here with all the Finnish bands that were here with Fiestecita and Grupo Salsa Mania and all, and stories here that this is an incredible book. It even tells you what happened in London with Edmundo Ross in London. And meanwhile, going back to the word salsa, where salsa comes from. So, like I was saying before, it was mambo. Then the charanga, the charanga bands took over New York for a while, and that's when I played with all of them because I was the house bass player. A lot of the bass players that were older sometimes wouldn't show up, and I was always sitting in the office or something, and if there was a piano player missing, they would tell me, play the piano. If there was a drummer missing, play the drums. If there was a conga, play the bass. And that's how I became a musician. By the time I got my scholarship to study with Marvin Topolsky from the New York Metropolitan Opera, he asked me, what can I teach you? You can teach me. And I was confused, because I was only, 21 years old or something. I couldn't understand, what do you mean? He says, well, you got a scholarship to study with me, and you can teach me. And I couldn't understand what that meant, because the tumbao is something completely different. The conguero, what the conguero does, what comes out of just a simple clave. You guys know what a clave is? I have it in the back. 2 sticks. So, like for instance, to be able to teach it easier to the kids, we would say shave and a haircut, $2. Shave and a haircut. Can you do that? I don't know how they teach that. They say dance on 2 or dance on 3. I really don't understand that. I know how to dance. Because if you didn't know how to dance in high school or junior high school, you didn't have a girlfriend. And if you didn't know how to dress, you didn't have a girlfriend. So all the handsome guys would say, man, how does Julio, he's so ugly, and look at how he got all these girlfriends. Because I knew how to dress, I knew how to be polite, open the door, sit down, being a gentleman, and that's how it happened. So then, what happened was that the twist came out. Because you people come here to dance. You come here to listen to the band so you can dance. The twist came out, and that blew everybody's mind. Everybody was doing the last twist again like we did last summer. And that was Ed Sullivan, which I knew. I knew Ed Sullivan. I did his shows a couple of times as a kid. And I was always hanging around with the theater people. So to me, I was just Julito to everybody. And then there was a guy named Joe Quijano who came out with the pachanga. So the pachanga is a little bit, it was a dance that you would take a handkerchief. The guys would take a handkerchief. I have it in my suit over there. I didn't know you guys were coming so fast. So anyway, the pachanga is something that you dance like this. And you have a handkerchief, and you do it to your girlfriend like this, and you're gonna swirl around with the, you would take it out of your shirt pocket as a gentleman. So that was the pachanga. Then there was the charanga. So first it was the mambo, right? Mambo. Then came the cha-cha. From the cha-cha came the charanga. From the charanga came the pachanga. From the pachanga, with the sadness or the fact that they didn't like it, came the boogaloo. When the boogaloo hit New York City, it was the Latin rhythm, the clave, singing in English. Now we have all of this now that we're going to play basically tonight. We're going to DJ all of this music for you to dance. So no reggaeton and no bachata. All right? We're going to play. We're going to go through the history of dance and the history of music. So after the boogaloo came, they were arguing about what to call our Latin music. So Celia Cruz and Tito Puente and Celia Cruz comes from La Sonora Matancera, so she was song. She was doing song and guaracha, right? Now, Tito Puente was more of a Latin jazz. He came out of Machito. Now, Machito is the grandfather. He's the number one guy that came to New York City, and everybody was in Machito's band. When Machito met me, I was the house band at a place called La Villa in upstate New York. Julio Andino, who was a very famous bass player, got sick. He didn't show up, so he asked me. Machito came over to me and asked me if I would sit in. And I said, yeah, sure. And when I started playing the music, the band fell in love with me. And I couldn't figure out why. Because the music was written too simple for me. The music was only written for 3/4. All I had to play was 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bass. And I was like, oh my God, how boring. Don't think, ba-da-da, ba-da-da. Then I said, oh my God, with all and there were 4 saxes, 4 trumpets, 4 trombones. Then I felt the power of only playing those 2 simple notes, 2, 3, 3, 4 rather, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So then I walked away. And then he felt like he started calling me and coming to my mom's church and picking me up and taking, and and I was saying, oh God, I wanted to play with I was hanging out a lot with Bill Evans and Matt Jamal, Ron Carter. I wanted to play jazz, and also I'm a singer. So I actually wanted to be a tenor, and that didn't work out so well for being a Puerto Rican at that time in the 1960s. It was very hard to get into the theater and into classical. I became a classical bass fiddle player in 1973, studying with Marvin Topolsky from the New York Met and Alvin Brim, and I wasn't able to get into a classical orchestra because I'm Puerto Rican. And that was sad. So I walked away. I went into the shoe business, retail, became a regional manager, and then they would call me, come and play. All right, I would come and play, but it wasn't what I was thinking it would be. But to make a long story short, after the Boogaloo, which was Joe Cuba, Pete Rodriguez, I like it like that, I like it like that, and everybody, all the guys were hip, man. We were wearing tailor-made pepper silk pants, alligator shoes, with Blyes, Italian Blyes, with the big afro. You're going to see me now. You're going to see it in a little while. And the band leaders would get mad at me. Mira, why you come dressed like that? I said, what do you mean why I come dressed like that? You don't have any uniform. Do you have a uniform? No, but you're coming better dressed than me, and I'm the band leader. I said, that's your problem. He said, well, then I quit. Oh, what do you mean you're going to quit? Well, I mean, come on. You don't have a uniform for the band. Like now, you're going to see the guys that are going to be well-dressed. You're the audience. We play for you. We don't play for each other. Like what was happening then, the musicians were competing with each other. And I was against that as a kid. I was always playing for the audience. And I wouldn't show off, which I'm doing now, right? I'm being narcissistic. But that was that era that happened in 1960, 65, 66, 67, 68. And then we were the ones that started yelling out, well, tremenda salsa, tremenda salsa. And that's how the word salsa came about. Then the bands broke up in 1973, and Barreto came out with the Indestructible Band. Con sangre nueva, indestructible, which I'm going to play. And it became a hit. So Barreto, Ray Barreto, let me see, oh my God, you can name it. Larry Hollow's, Imael Miranda left Larry Hollow. He went with Ralphie Mercado. Tito Allen came in. I came in. And that was in 1973. So then all of a sudden, boom, the word salsa became a stamp. And that happened in 1973. And it was kind of like a shock to the industry because Ralphie Mercado went and took all the singers from Fania Records, which was Jerry Masucci. And then that's when Willie Colon took Hector Lavoe, and Hector Lavoe went with Ralphie Mercado. So Willie Colon didn't have anybody, and all of a sudden, somebody tapped me on the shoulder. We were playing in Panama doing the inauguration of the airport, and we were accompanying Celia Cruz, Cheo Feliciano, and Nestor Sanchez. And he came over to me and he asked me, listen, I have some lyrics. Would you be interested in showing it to Harlow? And I said, yeah, go. Hey, Harlow, this is Ruben Blades, who won the Grammy Award this year, the Latin Grammy Award. Ruben Blades went with Willie Colon. So that, like I was saying, that in 1973, all the singers left Fania and went to RMM, and then the singers started to record on their own names. So Hector Lavoe became famous. He made his own records. Imael Miranda made his own records. Adalberto Santiago went with the Típica 73, and so on. And that's how salsa came about. Then Klaus Jalvanen, when we came here in 1976, I met Jussi Saxa with Fiestecita, and immediately he asked me, can you give a lecture like I'm telling you now? So what I'm telling you is what I lived. I didn't read it. This is my life. This is what actually happened, how salsa was created. Yeah, I'm not going to take like for instance, if you go to Google now And they might tell you, no, yeah, salsa comes from Cuba, or salsa comes from Venezuela. That's all. I'm not going to say it's a lie, but it's wrong information. It all started in the Bronx because there was two guys. There was Eddie Palmieri and there was Charlie Palmieri. And Charlie and Eddie wanted to call our music azúcar. They didn't want to call it salsa. Salsa was something that they said it doesn't exist. So they wanted to call it azúcar. El ritmo que traigo es azúcar, azúcar para ti, which we're going to play. Now, that tune broke the rule that every tune can only be played for a little bit more than 3 minutes by law. If you wanted to do an album of 12 tunes, it could only be like 3 minutes and a half. But Eddie Palmieri went crazy, and he did it for like 10 minutes. And it worked. It changed the whole industry around with azúcar. And then Celia Cruz also wanted to call salsa azúcar. They refused to use the word salsa. They said it doesn't exist. But then we were telling them, look, it's our generation. We want to call it salsa. Come on, this is an afro. We want to wear an afro. Leave me alone, that kind of thing. And that's how it happened. So my generation, salsa started around 1965, 67, after the Boogaloo. Came salsa. And then from salsa, it ended around, I would say, when Mark Anthony came around, then it became salsa romantica. And that's where Rafi Mercado made salsa romantica, and we were all against that because they were paying attention too much to the singers, and we were more paying attention to the dancers. And we were paying attention to the band. And all of a sudden, the tunes started to flip. And nowadays, if you like to go to the opera, you can go to the opera. If you want to dance salsa, you come and listen to me, or listen to to the real deal. From Prospect Avenue, there was a record label. There was a guy named Al Santiago who created Alegre Records. And he was recording. Go to YouTube and look for Alegre Records, and you're gonna have fun like there's no tomorrow. They would all go into the same room, like a room like this. No separate timbales and congas in one place and the trumpets on another place. Everybody in the same room. No remixing, no overdubbing, nothing. And they would joke around. We're gonna show it to you in a little while. And it became so popular that everybody was going to the Bronx. And then another reason why it worked in the Bronx, it was because it was a place called the Hunts Point Palace. ¿De dónde tú eres, pai? Where are you from? Oh, you're from Italy. Okay. In Italy, if you heard salsa and it went to Italy, we were invited to Italy. Of course, salsa doesn't come from Italy. But so the ones that actually was able to let the public know about the word salsa were the DJs from the radio stations, Dick Ricardo Sugar and Symphony Sid. And there was another guy named Paquito Guzman and those guys. But that came afterwards. But it was two Jewish guys that had a program, and if you can remember, Dick Ricardo Sugar and Symphony Sid was the one that actually took and mixed the American jazz from Harlem with the Puerto Ricans from the Bronx and created salsa meets jazz, and that was taking place every Monday night at the Village Gate in New York City. And that's how I met Bill Evans, Ahmad Jamal, Ron Carter. It was amazing that on a Monday night they would take Dizzy Gillespie with us playing, and then he would invite one jazz musician to come and play with the band. And that's how it was called Salsa Meets Jazz. Now Finland, amazingly, God bless Finland, a lot of these guys that you see playing now, their parents had the opportunity to go to the carnivals in Cuba. And they were kids, and they were taking them. A lot of them that are playing in my band went to Cuba. So they knew, all of a sudden they knew how to speak Spanish. They knew what santerismo was. Se hicieron santo. Y yo dije, ¿cómo que tú vas a ser santo? A Finnish guy doing santo. That kind of like threw me off a little bit. It's a religion. So then I figured I see what it was. Because being an American, I'm Puerto Rican from San Juan, Puerto Rico, born in Spanish Harlem. My parents are from Santurce. My grandparents are from the Canaries. My name is Julio Romero. So I kind of like was always wondering, what's going on here? How is it? I speak Spanish English, and the New York is the melting pot of the world. So when Symphony Sid had his own radio program, he was a DJ. A lot of people say they're DJs, but I mean they don't even understand the language that they're DJing. How can you be a DJ, a salsa DJ, and you don't understand the language? What are you doing? I don't understand that part as a musician. That's my opinion. And then when the DJs came out first in New York City, a lot of us musicians were against the DJs because they were taking our jobs. They would come and play for like $200 the whole night, and they would play our music, and they wouldn't hire the band. We're talking about 90s. You mean what I'm talking about? When all of this thing happened? That happened it started in 1969. 1969 till about 1990. Then it died. It's gone. Now I'm saying my generation, my genre of salsa music. Most of them have gone away. Tito Puente, Johnny Pacheco just passed away. And he was Dominican. So what happened was that Mexicans came in, Dominicans with the merengue, and then the Cubans, of course, everything comes from Cuba. I mean, the rhythm and the beat comes from Cuba, but it doesn't really come from Cuba. It comes from Africa. I mean, it's only logic. It comes in from Africa. And it went into Cuba. And then New York City is the melting pot of the world. And in 1959, when Castro threw everybody out, they went to the Bronx. They went to New York City. And in El Barrio, that's all you were hearing. And there was theaters and clubs like crazy. I was playing three clubs a night when I was a kid. They would come and pick me up and ask my mom permission, and I would play something like 10 gigs a week. Simply because I was a kid and I wasn't drinking or anything, and they would have to pick me up and bring me back home. So now, thanks to you, the audience, and Salsa Boreales, Calio, and you guys, you gave me the opportunity to come and give you this lecture. What I'm actually doing is just giving you the information of how I grew up and how I understand salsa music. Now that Tito passed away, Machito passed away, Larry Harlow passed away, most of the singers, I sort of like inherited all the music. So I have all the music now, but I have no one to play it for. There are no clubs anymore. New York City is completely shut down. There are no clubs. Maybe there's a bar or a restaurant, like what's happening here. There are no clubs. It's a bit sad. But thanks to, for instance, Salsa Boreales, then you got the Helsinki Salsa Academy, Miko. He helped me out, amazing. He, after being retired, he took me to Casino Ray, and we did Palladium nights. You can see that on YouTube, and it's incredible. He won the Salsa Championship. His name is Miko Kemp, and he created the Helsinki Salsa Academy. Then you have Miguel. He has Baila Baila. And there's a few dance schools now. I remember when we first came here in 1986, I was confused because the people weren't dancing because you guys did not know how to dance salsa in 1986. You started learning how to dance salsa after that. After Juan came, what's his name? Miguel came in with Baila Baila. And now you have, like, for instance, the Helsinki Salsa Academy, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple of other schools now that's teaching how to dance salsa. But thank you very much for supporting us and keeping our music alive. You can Google all of this stuff. You can go to YouTube. You can ask questions. You can ask Susie. What's her name? Susie, what's her name when you go to Google? You say, hi, how you doing? What's her name? Siri. Ask Siri. She'll tell you. And we're going to be playing in a few minutes. So enjoy yourselves. The bar is open. And thank you very much for coming. And please tell your friends. Okay? Thank you. Sampo. You ready? Show them something. Show them anything. Show them the Larry Harlow, who passed away, the marvelous Jew, they call him, and Judío Maravilloso. He passed away about 2 months ago. And we were the only ones that did the opera called Omi with Celia Cruz. As a matter of fact, Ruben Blades was on it too. Then we did La Raza Latina, which tells the story of Afro-Caribbean music on one album. So hopefully he'll be able to show this to you. Then I had permission to do Perez Prado's Voodoo Suite in 1980, I think it was 1994, 1996, at Pori Jazz, with the help of James Brown, Chuck Berry, B.B. King, Carlos Santana, Wilson Pickett, and we did what they call the Voodoo Suite. But let's see if we can see something. You would have to turn the lights down a little bit so they can see it. Okay, here we go. This is Machito. Okay, he's the father. He is the grandpa. He is the roots of what we call salsa music, Latin music. By the way, if you want to dance, you can get up and dance while you watch this. No problem. This is where Tito Puente came. As a kid, Tito Puente was playing with Machito. When I was a kid, these were my mentors. They would take me to the side and mentor me. I knew how to solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, when I was already 9 years old. I sight read music. If you put it upside down, I'll read it too.
¿Qué tú haces por aquí? ¿Qué tú haces por aquí? Ando en una chamaca que yo tengo por aquí. Ando en una chamaca.
So when Machito grabbed me as a kid, it was this kind of a band that I started. That I would just, and then the band turned around and they looked at me and said, "My God, how can this kid play like that?" We Puerto Ricans, my parents were working day and night, but Friday, Saturday, boy, they would have the parties and they would put music like there was no tomorrow. And this was the music I was listening to when I was a kid, when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I was listening in 1939. I wasn't even born. Okay, now let's see if we can now we're taking a little trip into what is called música latina, right? So this was the time of the mambo. This would have been in New York City in 1939. Now, let's see if we can go to the next one. Mario Bauza was the musical director for Machito. So when Machito asked me to sit in because the bass player didn't show up, the next one that came over to me to explain to me what to play was Mario Bauza. Mario Bauza said, okay, Machito said, mira, Julito's going to help you. And Mario Bauza came over to me. He said, okay, come here. He bought me the book and he said, mira, you're going to play this. Mario Bauza. He is the legendary Mambo King. He is the legendary Mambo King. He was the musical director, writer for Machito. From Machito to Mario Bauza. So, since we don't have that much time, let's see if we can we go a little bit further. When Tito Puente started with Machito, but remember that Mario Bauza was the musical director. Machito was just the singer. He was the entertainer. He didn't write anything. It was Mario Bauza who wrote the music. So then Tito Puente and like say Ray Barretto came in there and blah blah blah. So that was the generation of the mambo, and then came, like I told you, about the charangas, which was. I did my first charanga orchestra was in 1976. It was called Charanga 76. So let's see how that goes. Let's see what we have next. When they were calling me a lot just to come and do the recordings because I was so busy. I was figure ice skating, lifting weights, swimming. Hanging out with I became a black belt when I was like 9 years old. I fell in love with what is his name? The karate guy that you see on in the movies, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali. That was the time when there were no internets, there were no mobile phones. We would have to go outside and play basketball, everything was physical. Okay, then came Tito Puente, the king of the timbales, Tito Puente. This is me with Tito Puente. And in the background, there's a whole bunch of other guys there. There's Jimmy Sabater. Now, what happened with Tito, the bass player didn't show up, and he was doing a live show at the Riverboat on 34th Street. And it was a Sunday, and my mother said, mira, te está llamando, the trumpet player from Tito Puente is on the phone, he wants to talk to you. I said, no, tell him I'm not here, because I didn't really want to play with the old guys. So Tito said to me, listen, if you don't come, the bass player is going to lose his job. He's in the hospital. His wife is giving birth, and we're going on live in about an hour and a half. Can you run over here and help us out? And I said, what? Where are you? 34th Street. No, I'm on 194th Street in the Bronx. And with Tito? You gotta be kidding me. No, I can't do it. Oh, please, Julito, come. I said, look, I'm in jeans, I'm in sneakers. I don't have I won't be able to get there on time if I have to go home and change. He said, come, we got the bass here. Come, grab a cab. So I ran to this place where everybody was in tuxedos and the women were in gowns. And I walked in as a kid with sneakers and jeans. And then Tito turned around and he said, "Que esto? What are you doing?" He told Jimmy, "What are you doing bringing this kid? Are you crazy? Find me a bass player." And I started shaking. I was nervous. This guy's gonna beat me. So then finally, when I got on stage, is this bass on? So he asked me if I knew Oye Como Va. So can you put the bass on? Okay. So Oye Como Va was the same thing that I was telling you about where Oye Como Pupi, Pupi, Oye Como Va. And I was bored with that, you know. I said, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? And then Tito was turning around. He was like saying to myself, oh my God, look at this kid. I'm here with all this audience. And it was alive. It's live on the radio. The archives came out where they're announcing Tito Puente and his orchestra straight from Riverboat, Ollego Mountain. Then I started to listen to the band, and I said, and then after a while, when the band started to swing, then I went, and Tito said, oh my God. He said, what are you doing? And the music went up like that, and everybody, and the whole crowd came over this way looking at me doing that. And that wasn't written. It was only 3/4. So then he turned around, he says, oh my God. And I was shaking and having a good time. I was a kid, you know. So then he said, do you know Saca tu Mujer? I said, Maestro, I know every single song you play because my parents play your music every day in my house. And I play it in my house for fun. So when I played the next tune, he fired the bass player on the air. He said, Izzy, wherever you are, you're fired. Ladies and gentlemen, my new bass player, Julito Romero. And that's how I started playing with Tito Puente. You gotta be very kind to these kids nowadays, because I was a young kid. All these kids now, they're so talented. You know, only because you're older than them and you're their parents, that doesn't mean that they can't teach you or they can flip. You know, they can dive from a diving board all the way up there. You say, oh my God, how the hell did they dive so fast? And how they twist and turn and all this kind of stuff. That was me when I was a kid. And that's how I started with Tito. When Tito came here, now this is me in Venezuela with Larry Harlow, El Judío Maravilloso. Nestor Sanchez. Listen to this a second. The lyrics, which I keep telling a lot of people, the lyrics is what made us dance. It wasn't the rhythm so much. It would make us laugh, the lyrics. Like, for instance, what he's singing now. It's confusing. El mundo se va a acabar. The world is going to end and nobody cares. See me up there on bass? I always have a JR on my bass. That's when salsa music became very, very popular, because the only places that they can pay the bands what they deserve, whatever the money was in Venezuela and Mexico, Panama. Then when we started to travel, again, the word salsa had to be used, because they were trying to say, well, where does the music come from? Because the members of the bands were not only Puerto Ricans, because Puerto Rico was the ones who in New York City, it was the record companies came from New York City. It was Fania Records, Tico Records, Tito Rodriguez, a singer, also had a record label. All those record labels came out of New York City, like Sony and RCA and all those. All of that came out of New York City. So when we went to travel, we would have. All right, now watch this one. This was in Chicago. I take a bass solo here. This is when Barreto introduced me to the band, to the audience. My first solo as a bassist. I think I was 17 years old. That's Art Webb on flute. He's from Philadelphia. I told Barreto, put him in the band. He said, who is he? Put him in the band. Okay, Julio said put him in the band. So he put Art Webb. God bless him, he's still kicking. And that was the time when the cha-cha was very, very popular. Very, very popular. 1, 2, cha-cha. Julito. Our trumpet was Roberto Rodriguez, very, very famous Cuban trumpet player. He was always scolding me, and we were always fighting. He thought he was my father. Papi Roman. We're all in heaven. Barreto really got depressed when the band broke up. He had the best, for me, when I wasn't even a bass player when I saw him playing, because what happened was that every Sunday afternoon, for 99 cents, starting at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 7, they would let us miners go listen to Tito Puente, Machito, Ray Barreto, Dick Ricardo Sugar, not Dick Ricardo Sugar, God, there were so many bands at that time. And for only 99 cents, they didn't have a bar. They were only selling juices. And that's when I saw Barreto and Eddie Palmieri and Tito. And I was a dancer. I won dance contests, amateur dance contests, of course, for salsa music, before I became a bass player, before I even picked up the instrument. So that's another reason why the Bronx became so famous for salsa music, is because of the record company. Al Santiago had Alegre Records on Prospect Avenue, and everybody, almost all the Tito Puente, from Charlie Palmieri, Eddie Palmieri, Joe Quijano, everybody lived in the Bronx, because at that time it was class. It was you had to have some connection. Or either working for the police department, or working for the fire department, or working in the postal service to be able to live in the Bronx. The Bronx was only Irish, German, Italian. There's a little Italy in New York City, in the Bronx. That's the reason why salsa became so popular. Now this one is Charanga 76. I'm the one in the middle with the big afro. So they hired this Jewish, beautiful lady called Andrea Braxfield to make a charanga. And I was a little bit confused. I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? It became a #1 hit, and up to this day, it's still a #1 hit. And it wasn't really a band, it was just a studio band. And there I go, look at me. You can still see my ring. Listen to the lyrics. Soy, I am like the breeze, always in a hurry. I never tell you when I'm leaving or I'm going. Pedro. Hey, how about a round of applause for the best piano player now around? So this is charanga. 2 violins and a flute, which as a matter of fact, I just started my charanga now again. So you'll be hearing the charanga pretty soon here in Finland. I'm playing Thursday. I'll let you know where it is this Thursday with my charanga. What made this tune so popular was the lyrics. The lyrics is what makes the song for us. So there should be translation to tunes, and then you'll be able to dance it even better because you'll understand when you're dancing, and then you're dancing with your partner and you're singing to your partner singing. That was TR Records, which was Tito Rodriguez. I'm going to be singing a Tito Rodriguez bolero for you. So Tito Rodriguez had his own show. The show that Tito Rodriguez was on Channel 41, and I was the bass player for the television show. So I accompanied all those singers because it was the show. Every week was a different singer, and we were the house band for Channel 41, Channel 47. Teatro San Juan, Teatro Puerto Rico, New York Casino, Cabo Rojeño, and they hired me as the bass player of the house. So I was never the bass player of the band. I was always the bass player of the shows. Okay. So, let's see, we got one more, and then Hannah's gonna come and show you a nice little show, and you guys can dance. Sorry if I'm boring you. Am I boring you? Okay, is it interesting? Yeah! Okay, now, then Willie Rosario, I met him in the Union. He came over to me and he said, "Hi, Julito, would you like to do a recording with me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And it became a #1 hit. So as a kid, you know, I was in love with the Rolling Stones, and in love with the Beatles, and in love with almost everything that was coming out of the television, black and white. So then I said to him, "Willie, you know, can I suggest that your album covers are a little corny? Why don't you make something that when the people pass by, they'll stop and look, like your head exploding?" And he did it. And it became a #1 hit because his head is exploding. That was my idea. Obrero La Quince is very popular in Santurce. It's like an avenue, like you know, the people walk by the Obrero La Quince. And the story was that he had 15 cents. And he was trying to hide himself from the sun, and he was going to take the bus. But then he saw some beautiful girls, so he went and bought a piragua, which is like crushed ice with some syrup. And then he ate he was eating this piragua, they call them piraguas, and looking at the girls. He only had 15 cents, so he bought the piragua so he could walk looking at the girls instead of taking the bus. And that's what that song is saying. De Barrio Obrero La Quince, un paso es. And that's when I became famous, right there. That's when everybody was saying, "Hey, call Julio, call Julio, call Julio." And all I would do is I didn't even know what they were singing. I was Spanish English, you know. I was just reading notes. now that I'm older, now when I start to listen, I said, oh, so that's what the song was about. Willie Rosario is still alive. He's 96 years old. He's recorded over 100 albums, Willie Rosario, and every tune has a theme. Every single tune has a theme. That's what I loved about Willie Rosario. He wasn't popular. He wasn't a soloist and playing bang bang. They call him Mr. Rhythm. But his lyrics, Juventud Siglo XX, no pierda la tabla, usa la mente. So Willie Rosario was the one who really had put me on the map, where I became so popular that I was like this, you know, who am I going to play with, that kind of thing, you know. Meanwhile, I was getting paid for something that I loved to do, and I couldn't understand that. I actually became a musician and got paid for something that I loved to do. It's amazing. Chocolate. Listen to this. Again, another studio. I'm the one with the cup in front of my face in the middle. Listen to the lyrics. It tells you the story about Guaracha and song. Oye. Now you can get up and dance, guys. Now, be my guest. But el bajo. Listen to the lyrics. En la clave. El tiempo el cual usted ya está bailando. Sigan la clave. Sigan la clave. Yo abro la puerta porque tengo 3 llaves. Sigan la clave. Romero conmigo no te metas si tú no sabes. You hear me? I'm playing bass. And once I hear what key I'm in, I don't pay attention to the band.
Se deje de esa cosa, ¿vale?
Bueno, no sé, la cambió por una yagua.
¿Qué cosa una yagua, man?
Una cosa que sirve para hacer ciertas cositas. Ay.
Then on this album, I was always a little bit ahead of my parents and ahead of these guys. You know, I was the younger guy. And that was the time of basically, you know, where we Puerto Ricans were kind of like running the salsa scene. So I would tell him, let's play tunes, something like this. Now watch. Oye la conga. He's actually talking. So then it turned out to be that at that time, rap was all over the place. So I convinced the producers for me to do a rap tribute to Chocolate. So he said, what are you talking about? You're going to do a rap? You got to be kidding me. Well, yeah. No, you know, no, but the album is song and Wawanko. And I said, no, but you know, come on, this is my generation. We're into rap. Why not? Come on, let's do a rap. So when he allowed me to do the rap, and it turned out to be that I was the first Puerto Rican rapper that ever recorded an official, and this is it. And I wrote it and I sang it. Now it may be a little bit funny to you guys, but I'm just telling you the story of how we have to always look to the youth to see what's coming up next. You know, and embrace the past Yes. And this is me. I wrote this, and it had nothing to do with what you just heard before. And then they put it as the lead to the album. I brought in the violin players from the classical orchestra that I was playing with, and I brought another bass player to play funk. And then meanwhile, the producers and the guys were on the side. They weren't even from the album, that Chocolate album. This is the old, and I was dedicating it to him, Hot Chocolate. His name was Chocolate. So I was just, you know, my crazy stuff. Now watch what I sang. Singing to him, rapping to him. This is me.
Vaya, ¿qué pasa? All right, what's happening? Hey, listen here. Do you dig hot chocolate? Yeah, brother, that's what I said. All right. Smoke Hey, hot chocolate. Hey, hot chocolate. Hey, hot chocolate. Hey, hot chocolate. You heard me right. Do you think it's cold or hot? Cause you know when it's hot, you've got a lot. And Choco, man, he's so hot, he'll make you hot. He's so mean, he'll make you scream. Ow! Hey, he's hot chocolate. Right on, brother. Now you've got it. You can't go wrong if you dig this song. Man, you can't go wrong cause his band is strong. This man's so cool, this man's so strong. He can play his trumpet all night long.
Meanwhile, he doesn't
Juega,
speak
Choco.
English.
Show them what I mean.
He's a
Toca
trumpet
la
player.
trompeta.
He's a
Play that trumpet mean.
And he's standing
Juega,
there.
Choco. Ahí, juega, Choco. Ahí, juega, Choco. Ahí,
I must
juega,
have smoked
Choco.
a joint or something when I did this.
All
That
right.
must have been something.
All right. And here's Chocolate
Now,
Caliente.
I said, okay,
Juega,
Choco, now, sing.
Oye, Julito, está bien, ok. Tú estás loco, Julio.
I say to you now, you know, I even did a reggaeton. I've done a reggaeton. I recorded a reggaeton. If I have to do a bachata, I will record a bachata. Whatever comes next around the corner, I will do it because it's what you want. I want to give you what you want. You know? And that's my job as a professional musician. That's all I want to do. I'm not too crazy about. We musicians work for you. It's not this thing about going against each other as musicians. That's not my school. Okay, so now that's it. Okay, so thank you very much.